Hello everybody and a very warm welcome to the 7th of our webinar series where we'll be looking at the power of thought leadership. With me today, I'm joined by my lovely colleagues, Marina Fraser-Harris, Hannah Beard, who's based in our New York office, and Laura Henderson. In today's competitive environment, it's more important than ever to establish and position your firm's expertise through meaningful thought leadership and best-in-class content. So in this webinar, we'll look at why you should be producing thought leadership and how to do it effectively. This includes which channels to promote your thought leadership through and what success looks like. So without further ado, Marina, shall we kick off our presentation?
Thanks, Serena. So, why thought leadership and what is it good for? Over the last 5 years, thought leadership has become increasingly popular in the asset management industry. And it's really all about making sure you're establishing category authority in the areas where you excel. In other words, positioning your firm as an expert in a particular area. There's now a real need to differentiate your firm and demonstrate your competitive advantage. And when done well, it can give your firm credibility and influence, thereby attracting interest from the top decision makers. Essentially, thought leadership is about sharing unique insights and original ideas. It's not going to increase your overall brand awareness unless you start from a low base. However, it's a fantastic way of making sure that your audiences are engaging with your content during the consideration phase, which you can see on the user journey is a crucial phase before deciding to invest. From our research, we found that most asset managers see consideration traffic to their sites increase by around 30% in spring and the autumn. So timing really is quite important. Strong thought leadership will also increase the proportion of non-branded search traffic you get to your site. But most crucially, it allows you to increase your share of voice in the media through relevant, positive content rather than just reactive media commentary. So how do you win category authority? The best place to start is to revisit your company goals and marketing strategy to confirm what outcomes thought leadership content is designed to achieve. With these goals in mind, it can also help to benchmark your firm's perception against the industry and competitors by conducting an audit. What this audit will show is areas of strength and opportunity as well as competitor intelligence, such as which geographies your peers are putting budget behind. Following the audit, the next step is to take this information into a messaging and content workshop with the C-suite, and then finally conduct some white space analysis. As you can see from this diagram, finding the white space is critical to create category authority. At its heart, finding white space is about making sure that your communication is built on themes and topics that you can actually own in the media and online. There are plenty of ways of trying to find the white space that match up with your core capabilities. You can do some peer analysis, for example, and see what your competitors are doing, and then assess which keywords they're using and which ones you think might be up for grabs. You can also A/B test potential themes with your audiences. Peregrine's approach to this is built around our simple white space framework, and it lets us compare the proportion of media coverage on a particular theme versus organic demand that we can see for a topic by looking at social media engagement and Google search volumes. This way you can see which themes are under or over indexed by the market already. However you think about finding the white space, the most important thing is that you're able to have as much confidence as possible that you're building campaigns around the most powerful themes available to you. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Hannah, who's going to tell us how to create effective thought leadership.
Thank you, Marina. Well, it will come as no surprise that the first step in creating effective thought leadership is to decide on your topic. And as Marina has already walked us through, the most effective and meaningful thought leadership topics are identified by a white space analysis. Those topics that are under-indexed, that allow you to demonstrate your subject matter expertise without simply adding more to an already oversaturated conversation. Once these topics have been identified, it's also crucial to tailor them to your audience. What are their hot buttons? How can you provide an answer to the questions that they are asking? It's also important at this point to assess what proprietary data you can utilize to support your content and create key soundbites that you can then use elsewhere. Before creating your content, it's really important to set a clear marketing objective. And it's this that will allow you to stay on message and measure the success of your campaign. Ask yourself who you want to reach and what your call to action is. You'll also need to decide how you want to engage with your audience. This will tell you how you want to visually tell your story and what collateral you'll need to support that. Does your topic lend itself well to a white paper that can be supported by video and infographics? Or is it more of a blog post that you can host on your website and utilize as a hook for media relations? When creating the content itself, it's a really good exercise to work back from your ideal headline. This can often help you create content that can be used in multiple ways without having to painstakingly fit it all together once it's already created. And don't forget that your content needs to fit with your corporate key messages. What does your audience need to consistently remember about you? When thinking about distribution, try to utilize all channels that are suitable for your content to get maximum impact. Repurposing your content is key to creating campaigns with longevity and make it worth sharing. So to give you an idea of how to put this into practice, we'll show you how we did this for our own thought leadership. Earlier this year, we authored a thought leadership report on ESG marketing, which some of you may have seen. In this, we made use of our proprietary data to show how overloaded the media is with this topic and the importance of white space analysis in order for marketing professionals to differentiate themselves. In order to create this, we asked ourselves, what does our audience care about? And our answer was simply, they want to know how to make a difference with their marketing efforts and cut through the noise. And with this, we set an objective for ourselves, and that was to create a report that provided clear insight. We wanted to be able to use the report across multiple channels and in the media for a truly integrated campaign, and we wanted to drive reverse inquiries. When thinking about how we wanted to engage with our audience, we knew we wanted to create a report from our proprietary data because it's this that we know sets us apart from our competitors. It's this that also allowed us to create tangible examples and visual stories for our audience to understand the impact that this research can have. When writing the report itself, we always had our key headlines in mind. So how did we want the media to write about this? And what are the real standout points that will gain attention on social media? And because we'd created our report in this way, when it came to distribution, we already had the content for our supporting collateral, as we'd had it in mind throughout the entire creation process of our report. We then designed the visuals for social media, distributed our press release, and hosted our webinar to launch the report. But when it comes to distribution, there are a number of ways that you can create impact. And I'll now hand you over to Laura, who is going to tell us exactly what they are.
Thank you, Hannah. So as with any content created, you can't just expect it to generate tons of awareness or engagement. Creativity, insight, and structure are necessities for your thought leadership. But similarly, these elements need to be applied when planning distribution to the media, its social media strategy, and then how you rotate and recycle that content. From a marketing and communications view, content is at the core of a digital media campaign. Content is what people find when searching on Google, and content is what people share on social media channels. So we've divided the main channels into 3 categories: media, social media, and marketing. The media will often require the main hall of your thought leadership. Contributed articles can be written in place with a key target publication. Longer and more detailed white papers can be reported on or used in additional journalist stories around the subject. For example, we had a client whose thought leadership was referenced in a Tier 1 publication multiple times and multiple articles over a year. To keep the topic and conversation alive, your white papers can always be refreshed. Companies need to commit to promoting their thought leadership on social media. This includes platforms such as LinkedIn, Twitter, or video sites such as YouTube or Vimeo. Publishing on LinkedIn allows you to share your expertise with the professional world and can help to quickly grow your audience and network. You can either post your content as a LinkedIn post or LinkedIn Pulse article. Twitter is another platform that can be used to promote quick, snappy pieces of content. The average human attention span is getting shorter, and written content is consuming for a reader. Therefore, short videos are easy to watch for commuters, as well as being entertaining and engaging. Marketing tools are essential to make sure that your thought leadership achieves its maximum impact. This can be anything from a blog post or blog series based around the findings and follow-up interviews, short animated videos, visual and catchy infographics, and also you may find your findings lend well to a webinar, which in itself opens up to more potential marketing outreach. But it's not just enough to post your thoughts and leave it there to presumably blow the mind of your audience. Communicate with them, find out people's thoughts and pinpoint the knowledge gaps that need filling. Here we have highlighted some key examples from our experience where clients have used innovative and leading ways to achieve maximum impact with their thought leadership. So they've used graphs and analysis turned into infographics across social media, active graphics for paid advertising, standalone web pages to drive phrase-specific traffic and search engine optimization improvements, interactive calculators and tools that trade media can embed in articles, and in-conversation podcast episodes drawn from the findings. Now, a good example of a digital media campaign is the Schroders Global Investor Study. Schroders combined category authority and data-driven insights into a well-established and creative annual global study. The reports, centered around investor behavior insights, include topics such as being in control of your finances, sustainable investing, and realistic retirement expectations. Schroders then created a dedicated landing page for each topic that acts as its central hub, whilst also using all forms of digital distribution and means to achieve maximum impact. So if we look at some of the accessible content they drew from this thought leadership report, it includes detailed animated infographics, short videos with executive summaries, social media campaigns using key messages, a press release on key findings, and they achieve media coverage in top publications and standalone articles and blogs. Now, I'll hand over to Irina.
Thank you, Laura. So now that we know how to create thought leadership and how to distribute it via relevant marketing channels, what actually classifies as a successful piece of content and how do we measure that success? Well, firstly, it's about lead generation, which spans across multiple touch points for many businesses, with thought leadership being one of those touch points. Creating content and publishing it behind a sign-up form where users have to input their contact details in order to access the full copy of the content allows businesses to capture short-term engagement metrics, such as the number of report downloads. But more importantly is a longer term strategy, which is to build out a database of contacts and to retarget them. Retargeting is basically nurturing your newly acquired leads so that eventually after the follow-up engagements, they convert and become your clients. Worth noting here that having an appropriate CRM is vital as it allows businesses to improve the quality of communication with their leads and existing customers by centralizing all the data and enabling a targeted approach to interactions, which in return increases customer lifetime value. Another metric of success would be engagement, which can be measured by looking at content posted on all the relevant channels. So specifically, some examples: how many times was it liked? How many times was it shared or forwarded? Is that level of engagement in line with your expectations and past campaigns? Or perhaps it has outperformed. However, whilst these metrics are useful, they shouldn't be sole indicators of assessing campaign success, and they don't tell you about the brand's wider impact. Next we have is the share of voice, which measures the level of brand awareness. So with good content, we can increase quality media coverage through relevant, positive content rather than just reactive media commentary. As highlighted earlier, it's crucial to have truly valuable insights if you are to get the journalist and audience interested in your piece. And of course, if the topic is interesting, the business will see an increased search traffic. For example, let's say you would like to own the white space on sustainability. And as Marina mentioned earlier, owning the space means demonstrating the firm's differentiated core competence of the chosen topic. So going back to the example, if you create content which ties to the topic of sustainability and includes relevant keywords, your company's content and web pages are more likely to be featured as a suggested read. So there are also SEO benefits, as the company's Google page 1 will be populated with insightful industry pieces which showcase companies' knowledge on the pertinent topics versus, again, just the general market commentary. And lastly, one of the best outcomes of any campaign is when the lead reads content and directly contacts the firm, and hopefully resulting in a lead conversion. So these are all the factors which need to be considered when creating content. I guess the last point I would like to make before we move on to the Q&A part of our session is that it's extremely important to ensure that all of your campaigns are tracked from start to finish, allowing you to understand how it's performing and whether your engagement tactics and content resonate with your target audience. So this is the end of our presentation today. However, we can now move on to the Q&As to cover any questions that our audience may have. So over to you, Marina.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Irina. And thank you to those who sent through questions. The first one we have here is from Emma, and she's asking, how often should companies be promoting content and the findings from its thought leadership? And I think, Laura, would you like to answer that?
Yes, of course. Well, it should go without saying that companies have a content strategy in place before the thought leadership is published. After securing an exclusive with the media and distributing, the thought leadership needs to be shared immediately on all social media channels. Companies should then regularly create and recycle posts around the key findings and stats. This is really important, particularly in the first month. And then the campaign should again be revisited a few months later. If we use the Schroders Global Investor Study again as an example, their press release goes out in July. They then conduct follow-up interviews with authors and key speakers around the survey. And then with the additional findings and points from the original key findings, they put this into contributed articles, which are placed throughout autumn.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. And next we have a question from Amanda, who's asking, if you're a boutique asset manager, is there any point trying to compete with the large investment management houses who have big budgets to produce thought leadership? I thought this might be a good one for you, Hannah.
Yeah, of course. Well, the short answer is yes, absolutely. It's a question that we often hear from clients and prospects, and it's something that I think unnecessarily puts firms off marketing activities. And this needn't be the case, because the key to successful thought leadership, as we've mentioned throughout this presentation, is that white space analysis. And it's this that will allow you to take on those larger firms, you know, the ones with the big budgets, with the big teams, that can create a lot of collateral, because you're taking ownership of a topic that, you know, there's room for you to have those conversations and there's room for your voice to be heard. It's also crucial to identify those topics where you can make an impact that showcase your subject matter expertise, because it's this that means you won't get drowned out by the bigger firms. And this applies to the content that you produce as well. Whilst it's great to have lots of supporting materials, these aren't always entirely necessary if that's not available to your firm. And it mostly matters how you want to engage with your audience. So please don't be put off. There are multiple ways in which smaller firms can create and distribute thought leadership successfully.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. So we've had a question from Rob. Which CRMs would you recommend for a content-driven campaign? I think, Irina, you've done quite a lot of research into various CRMs.
Sure, I'll take that one. Thank you, Rob. This is a great question, which we get asked all the time. As I'm sure you all know, there are many different CRMs out there, but choosing the right one should really be based on your goals and the problems you are trying to solve. So the CRM of our choice is HubSpot. It's a complete platform of marketing, sales, customer service, and CRM software. And this is the exact reason why we like it, because it does everything under one roof. So many firms would have combinations of CRM and then another tool such, to schedule social media posts. So the great thing about HubSpot is that it does that all together. Even more importantly, it's integrated and is in one place, providing you with a holistic overview of your campaign and all the interactions. Obviously, there's also Salesforce, but the feedback we received from our clients using it is that it's very complicated to use and requires special training, whereas HubSpot is really straightforward and intuitive. So hopefully that somewhat answers your question, Rob, and if not, feel free to get in touch after the webinar where we can chat about this further.
Great, thank you, Irina. So one more question from Tom, who's asking, should content be posted via LinkedIn post or LinkedIn Pulse? And I know Laura's been looking at this recently, so please can you take that question?
That's a very good question. Well, both have their pros and cons. LinkedIn Pulse is essentially an article and has no word limit, whereas with a LinkedIn post, you're limited to 700 characters as an individual, or 1,300 if you post as a company. So with LinkedIn posts, you obviously post and then people will see it on their news feed. But in 3 to 10 days, other people will have made posts and your post will no longer be shown to your audience. Whereas with LinkedIn Pulse, people can find your article in the long term through Google or LinkedIn. So you essentially will get more views from LinkedIn if you have a lot of a LinkedIn post, if you've got a lot of followers. However, after that initial push, your post is then hard to find. So what we recommend at Peregrine is using both, posting content onto the company LinkedIn page as a post, so it's shared and boosted onto your followers' homepage, and then having the author publish it as an article, so it can be searched and found easily in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you, Laura. Now, that's all we have time for today. Sorry we haven't managed to get through all the questions that have been sent through, but thank you very much for sending them, and we will be following up individually to answer those remaining questions. And also we will be sharing the recording of the webinar next week. So if you have any further questions, please do get in touch with our team, email address and contact details on the last slide. And that just leaves me to say a big thank you to all of you for joining us today. Take care. Goodbye.